In this segment, I'd like to talk about how we can give a sense of movement to the water down here. Slow shutter speeds are going to give that sense of the water crashing on the rocks. First off, what we need to do is make sure that the camera is not on auto ISO. Auto ISO is going to come in and hunt for light, trying to keep those shutter speeds high, working against you really. So keep it on the lowest number you've got. For some cameras, that's going to be 200 ISO, for some it's 100, for some maybe lower. Keep it as low as you can. The next thing is to go for your aperture priority. AV on Canons, such as I have here, A on many other cameras, that lets you control the aperture number itself. Choose the biggest aperture number you've got. In my case, it's f22, really small aperture, small hole, letting in very little light. Camera has to then give you a very slow shutter speed. So what we're looking at here now in this case is a shutter speed of 1/60th of a second. It's not really good enough. To get a good sense of movement in that water, we need something in the region of 1/15th of a second, 1/10th of a second, 1/8th of a second, that sort of range, maybe even slower, depending on how fast or how slow the water's moving. So what I can do to do that is use a polarizing filter. I mean, I do think that everybody should have one of these in their bag anyway. And what's good about a polarizing filter is that at its maximum effect, it's dropping light coming in by about 1 stop. So what does that mean? Well, it means that if the shutter speed you're getting is 1/60th of a second, even with the aperture number at its biggest number, even with the ISO at 100, that's not going to really blur that water. We want to get it slower, so a polarizing filter at maximum effect, maximum darkness, is going to drop it down by 1 stop to 1/30th of a second. Still not in those numbers that I'm talking about, the 1/15th, the 1/10th of a second. So what do? Well, really what we do is we use a neutral density filter. I've got a 3-stop filter here, which means that the light's going to be dropped by 3 stops. That 1/30th of a second with the polarizer will now become 1/15th of a second, 1 stop. It'll become 1/8th of a second, 2 stops. It'll become 1/4 of a second, 3 stops. Now I'm going to get really nice movement in that water.